Hi, I'm Tom with Glass Simple, and today I'm going to show you how I measure for a inline shower enclosure, frameless. And you may notice I am very particular or very precise, and I live by the philosophy aim small, miss small. Let's get into it. All right, the first thing I do is I go ahead and put some tape where I'm going to put marks. That way I can just peel them when I'm done. I know you can write with pencil, but then you have to erase it. The other thing is if you're dealing with a homeowner, they often do not like to see you writing on their tile. So this is safe. Go on a 28-inch door. I document the curb size on my paperwork. Not that necessary. That is not a precise measurement. I like to use an adjustable square for laying the shower out. This is a simple inline. For higher precision, I take the adjustable square and put a mark from both sides, and if there's any variability, you'll be dead center, or at least between the marks will be dead center of the curb. That's definitely overkill in this situation, but again, ain't small, miss small. I then take my laser and line it up between marks. You really only have to hit the one close to the wall, so that's the one that's most important. But if the wall is running out a lot, it helps to be in line for accuracy. So I've got the mark down on the tile. You can't see where my tape measure is, but my tape measure is going to be right down on the mark. Again, that's for accuracy. This ceiling's kind of low, so we're doing a 72-inch height. I like to have between 10 and 12 inches of ventilation above the shower. Please like and subscribe. Now I'm doing the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to make my horizontal mark. So we have a vertical mark there and one here. So this is a DeWalt laser. I'll put the model on the screen. It is the laser that I've found probably the most helpful. There may be others out there, but obviously I have not been able to try them all. So this has a flat spot that allows me to hold it against the wall, align it to the mark on the other side. So when I'm measuring, my measuring device is not tilted. Since I've already got the camera pointed high, I'm going to go ahead and take that dimension. This is a measuring stick. I will put the name of it on across the screen there, and then I just use it to measure at the top. This is very accurate. I am not aware of a more accurate way to take this dimension. So that's 45 and a half. Really 45 and 9/16 hair week. And then I move it on both sides of the line. So it's almost dead or spot on 45 and 9/16. It doesn't hurt to take a tape measure and double check that dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same measuring stick to measure at the bottom here. It should be noted that you can also take this measurement very accurately with a tape measure. Simply measure off one side and put a mark at, say, a number like 30, and then measure off the opposite wall and measure to that mark and add the two numbers together. Okay, so we have the height dimension, we have the top dimension, now we have to see if the walls are flat. I use a 6.5 foot level. It is level, it's a Stabila. I don't care too much on who makes them, although You know, your customer will see what you're using oftentimes, and if you're using a brand like Stabila, that'll make them believe in you a little more. If you're doing it for yourself, it doesn't matter at all, so long as it's flat. So what I've done is I put an 1/8 inch shim top and bottom. I have some cards that I carry. These cards are 64ths. This is overkill for sure, but it's very accurate. So what I have is a 1/16 plus 3/64 of a hump. That's going to be a deduction on our measurement. Over here we're going to do the same thing. Start off by putting the level against the wall. I have a very minor gap, yep. Probably going to be, and I use these same cards as feeler gauges, so it didn't fit in at the bottom, so I know I don't have a gap. So right here is a high point at the top. So just above that, I can get a 64th card in there. So I just notate that I have a 64th gap at that corner. That right there is what my notation looks like. So I take the same thickness of card and I tape it to the wall where that gap is. Because the gap is not even, I will check the outage with the card against the card. And right now I'm just putting the level against the wall, and I'm going to see which way the wall says it is out. It's something you can do when you're checking to see if it's flat. And I just make a mark on my paper to notate the outage. This is only to determine which direction the wall is out, not how much. Outage is the same there. So you can see there, those are the notations that I've made so far. So now we know the wall conditions, we don't have the outages yet, but we know if they're flat or not, and I'm just going to check the bottom. The hump is so small here, I really don't need to notate it, especially since I'm not between surfaces for my shower mounting, but I like to notate it. And I'm just using the cards because these are very slight humps. Both outages are a 64th, or humps, excuse me, humps. Always make sure that the curb slopes in. This one is level. So we need to add a threshold under the door where it will leak. And in fact, it is sloping out just a hair in spots. So I notate that, and we'll add a threshold. I'm going to use a level laser, so this self-leveling. Same laser I was using up there to lay the shower out. This shoots a self-leveling level line. I use these cards to get it to an even mark. Almost level. It is not perfect. This is a 32nd low. I go ahead and mark that. Flip the laser around, and we're going to check the bottom of the panel over here. Outage dimensions are taken at the corner of each panel. I read the tape measure at the center of the laser. The outage is the difference between the two dimensions. Here, we are a 16th plus a 32nd low. The low side is the larger number. So I wrote that dimension down. Those are our measurements so far. So I use a piece of, some Tupperware that I store some of my items in, that I carry into the house with me as a pedestal and set the laser on it, parallel to the wall. So now I'm going to make sure it's completely parallel. If you're a hair off, it's not the end of the world, but this will help with accuracy. If it is not parallel to the wall, and there's an outage, the wall is leaning one direction, which we know this one is, the accuracy will be diminished. And because my laser is close, this has an adjustment knob on top. It's close, I just push in the center of the Tupperware, bring it to an even mark, note the dimension in my head, which is 4 1/4. Then I come up top, take that dimension, which is 4 1/16. So with the bottom being 4 1/4, top being 4 1/16, that's a 3/16 outage at the bottom. In other words, the top left is leaning in 3/16 of an inch. So 4 1/4. For clarification, the reason I didn't use the micro adjustment knob is by turning that knob, you just rotate the beam, making it less parallel to the wall. And it's a 1/16 strong. You may notice that I'm double and even triple checking everything. This is to prevent mistakes. Tweaking my measurement here. So what we're doing now is just double checking 4 1/4. So I would say the actual outage is in 1/8 plus 3/64. But we're going to use 3/16 since it's so close to that. So here I again do the same thing. I put my laser parallel to the wall. I just go ahead and quickly measure that. The 1/16 off, we're going to roll with that. Tile is not going to be flat anyhow. Right there on 3 1/4. Again, we're measuring off that card, so we don't have to do any math in our head. And this is, again, just shy of 3/16, so I have 3 1/16 up there. So the bottom should be 5/16 plus a 32nd wider than the top. I've got 3 1/4. And again, 3 1/16 strong. Quick double check just to make sure we're looking at the right numbers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check our math. Over here is where I laid it out at 72. I used the laser to lay out the mark over here on this wall. It is 72 1/8. Both of them are a hair shy of the mark, so it's an 1/8 inch difference. So here, this dimension plus that dimension is 1/8 inch. I have 72 1/8 over here and 72 there. So that, with this being level across the top, adds up. Now, the reason why we take top and bottom measurements is so we can again check our math, because to order this, all I have to do is check the walls to see if they're flat and check my outage, and all I need is this dimension. So I'm going with these 3/16 dimensions. I take off 3/8 of an inch because 3/16 plus 3/16 is 3/8. Take 3/8 from this, I have 9/16. My actual measurements are a 32nd different than that. I can live with that. That's the thickness of 2 business cards. And guys, that's how you accurately measure for a inline shower door when you're measuring for a frameless shower. I know I'm way more precise than most people. It really doesn't take that much more time. Even if it takes 10 minutes less, if you remove one mistake a week, you've made money. And you know what? You've kept your customers happy. So consider adopting some of these techniques that I've showed you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to catch you on the next one.